There's not much in the way of good news for the Prime Minister in the latest quarterly analysis of news polls. So when they get all the news polls over a quarter and stand back and look at the big picture, PM is struggling to convince premiers and chief ministers to stick to what they all agreed at National Cabinet, bar Gladys Berejiklian. And over that time, despite the lockdowns in some of these states, the Coalition's primary vote has actually gone backwards in battleground areas of New South Wales and Victoria. To discuss this, I'm joined by my Monday night panel from Melbourne, former Communications Minister, Labor power broker and all of that, Stephen Conroy, and also from Melbourne, Executive Director of the Menzies Research Centre, Nick Cater. I'll go to you first if I can, Nick. Coalition strategists, they'd be worried to see this consistent and significant drop now in support from blue-collar workers and voters without a university degree here in the Coalition's underlying vote, because they are the voters that got behind Morrison in 2019 and got him over the line. How do they get them back?
Well, I think that you go back to basic politics 101. You start looking at jobs, security of employment, growth in the economy, those sort of things that people respond to. I think there is a problem in that poll. I mean, as you say, it's a quarterly survey, so that some of that is historical, but there does seem to be a problem in various sectors. You can see still with younger voters, particularly going for Labor and the Greens. But I think some of the positives from that poll for the Coalition is that they're polling very strongly amongst retirees and in the over 55 groups. That's an important group for them. It's when they start support starts waning in that group, as it did in the 2016 election, then they're really in trouble.
Stephen, I want to preface this by saying I think it's incredibly difficult to poll at the moment. That's certainly what pollsters are telling me. But what's your thoughts?
Well, look, I think firstly, even if you take that worst case scenario, all that does is give Labor a wafer-thin majority. They need to go, OK, this is a bad poll, but it's not an election landslide to Labor. I agree, I think, with the point Nick made. This is a backward looking. This is an analysis over 3 months of the past. I think the Prime Minister is potentially coming out of some of the vaccine rollout debacle will begin to recede as Australians begin to exercise their freedoms in different states going forward. So I think it shows that Labor are competitive. For those who dismiss Albo and dismiss Labor and going into the election, they need to be very careful about that. But the poll shows that Labor are competitive, and that's something that surprises some people.
I want to ask you, I've got you then, Stephen, about the extraordinary comments we saw from the Deputy Leader of the UK Labor Party over the weekend. Her name is Angela Rayner. If you don't know about her now, you certainly will. She's refusing to apologise. She referred to the Conservative Party, Conservative MPs as scum. She called them homophobic, racist, misogynistic. She also claimed that she held back a bit. I'll tell you what, this is a basket of deplorable sort of stuff. I mean, it's clearly, Stephen, she's pushing out some ground there against her leader, Keir Starmer, but these are extraordinary. It's made headlines right around the world.
Well, look, it's just an unhelpful comment from someone who's supposed to be in a responsible position. I mean, managing a British Labor Party conference in the current climate, when they've had the spanking of all spankings, they've had to dump Jeremy Corbyn. He's still an influence. She still aligns herself with him. She's clearly trying to undermine the current leader. But the bad news for her is that polls at the moment show that the most popular Labor politician isn't even in the House of Representatives. It's the Mayor of Manchester. And it just shows how far the British Labor Party still has to go to be competitive against Boris going into the next election. But just, deliberately unhelpful, trying to pump herself up at everybody else's expense.
Well, Starmer doesn't help himself though, does he, Nick? He argued, and those headlines literally have gone around the world. He said that it's not just women who have a cervix.
Yeah, look, I mean, this is a minefield these days for anybody, but he's not managing that very well. I mean, Starmer's just produced a sort of 200-page "What We Stand For" document, and I'd suggest that when you've got to take 200 pages to say what you stand for, you're probably not really clear yourself. And that's certainly, I think, what the voters are thinking there. I don't think the tactic of using, vindictive words against your opponents, as we saw at the weekend, is really the way to win. You've actually got to be seen to stand for something, and Labour in Britain at the moment has a real problem showing people what it does stand for if it knows itself.